The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked up my daughter's driveway in Oakville, late September. That Ontario wind already carrying winter in its teeth. I had a cream-colored folder tucked under my arm, the kind lawyers use, stiff, with a notary seal pressed into the corner. Inside that folder was a life I never expected to have. My brother Raymond had passed 6 weeks earlier, and he'd left me everything. A waterfront cottage on Lake Muskoka worth close to $3 million. 2 rental properties in downtown Toronto pulling $18,000 a month. A stock portfolio sitting just north of $4.5 million. At 63, after 41 years driving long haul for Canadian Pacific, I was worth just under $8 million. And the only person I wanted to tell was my daughter Claire. I'd rehearsed the whole thing on the drive-in from Oshawa. I was going to sit her down at that kitchen island she loved, slide the folder across the granite, and tell her that her old man had come into something real, that her mortgage was gone, that her boys, my grandsons Ethan and Cole, would have their university paid for, that she could quit the marketing job she complained about every Sunday dinner and finally write that book she'd been talking about since she was 17. I'd lost her mother to pancreatic cancer 6 years ago. Since then, Claire was my whole world. Today, I was going to change hers. I was 2 steps from the side door, the one off the mudroom, when I heard my son-in-law's voice through the screen. Marcus, 41 years old, financial consultant out of Mississauga. What that mostly meant, near as I could tell, was that he shuffled other people's money between accounts and took a cut along the way. I'd never trusted the way his eyes slid off mine when we shook hands. But Claire loved him, and the boys adored him. So for 11 years, I'd kept my mouth shut. I kept it shut for another 11 seconds, which is exactly how long it took to change everything. I'm telling you, Claire the man is a walking liability. He's 63 years old with a pension that barely covers his groceries and a house worth what? $250 on a good day? He eats here 3 times a week. He's going to outlive us at this rate. My hand froze an inch from the screen door. Marcus, please, he's my father, and I'm your husband. And I'm telling you, we need to think about this practically. My mother went through the same thing with her dad by the time he finally passed. They'd spent 80 grand on home care. 80 grand, Claire. That's Ethan's entire undergrad. Dad isn't sick. He's healthy as a horse for now. But you've seen him lately. The way he repeats himself. The way he forgot Cole's hockey tournament last month. I had not forgotten Cole's hockey tournament. Cole had told me it was canceled. I remember because I'd driven 40 minutes to Whitby before I got the text. He's just getting older, Marcus. Exactly. And we need a plan. There's a place in Peterborough, Maple Ridge Manor. Shared rooms, sure, but it's affordable. We sell his bungalow, put the proceeds toward the entrance fee. The government picks up the rest. He's got maybe $1,000 a month from CPP and OAS that covers incidentals. You want to put my dad in a nursing home? I want to be realistic. He can't live alone forever. And frankly, I'm not spending my weekends changing his diapers when the time comes. Neither are you. We have kids to raise, careers to build. He had his life. Now it's our turn. I heard my daughter start to cry. Soft and muffled, like she was trying to hide it from him. Between you and me, Marcus said, his voice dropping, I've already talked to a lawyer about power of attorney. We need to make sure we can handle his finances, his house, everything before some charity or some scammer gets to him first. He doesn't have to agree to it. We get him to sign during a lucid moment. Hell, I can slip it in with a birthday card. He'll sign anything you put in front of him if you're the one asking. The folder under my arm suddenly felt like it weighed 200 pounds. I took one slow step back, then another. My boots made no sound on the concrete. I reached my truck, a 10-year-old Silverado I'd bought used the year my wife died, and I sat behind the wheel for a long time without turning the key. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, from something older and colder than that. I had driven highways in February blizzards at 3 a.m. with black ice under my tires and 80,000 pounds behind me. I had buried my parents and my wife. I had raised a daughter on a trucker's wages while her mother fought cancer for 2 years. I had never in my life felt the kind of fury that rose in me at that moment. I drove home, made a coffee, sat at my kitchen table and looked at the final page of that folder. $7.9 million. Give or take the market's mood. And I made a decision. They wanted to see a burden. A forgetful old man with a dying pension and a house worth nothing. Fine. Let them see exactly that. For 3 weeks, I played the part. I showed up to Sunday dinner in a flannel shirt I'd owned since the 90s. Work boots with the soles starting to split. I mentioned the price of milk twice in one conversation. I asked Marcus with my best confused old man squint to explain the Google to me. And I told Claire I'd been thinking about selling the bungalow because the driveway was getting hard to shovel. The look on Marcus's face when I said that. Like a wolf watching a lamb walk into his den and ask for directions. Dan, he said, leaning back in his chair with the easy confidence of a man who thinks he's already won. Claire and I have been thinking about you a lot. There's a place up near Peterborough Maple Ridge. Really lovely. Lots of activities. People your age. It might be a real nice change. Maybe, I said. I'd have to think on it. Sell the house first. Oh, I know a guy in real estate. Could get it listed quick. Save you the stress. That would be a real weight off my shoulders, Marcus. He almost smiled. Caught himself. Almost. Claire wouldn't look at me through any of this. She pushed her food around her plate and stared at her wine glass. But once, just for a second, she caught my eye. And I saw something there I hadn't seen in a long time. Shame. Real, bone-deep shame. She knew what was happening was wrong. She just didn't know how to stop it. And that one look saved her. Because as I drove home that night, I understood something clearly. My daughter wasn't the enemy. She was a hostage. 11 years of marriage to a man who'd slowly convinced her that every instinct she had was wrong, that her father was a problem to be managed, that love was something you calculated on a spreadsheet. I was going to get her back. But first, I was going to burn Marcus to the ground. I called a lawyer the next Monday, not the small-town notary who'd handled Raymond's estate, a Bay Street firm in Toronto, glass doors, the whole thing. I hired a woman named Miss Patel, referred by one of Raymond's old business partners. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, made tidy notes, and when I finished, she told me 3 things. First, Marcus couldn't force me into a nursing home. Nobody could, not without a doctor's assessment and a legal finding of incapacity, which I was nowhere near. Second, if he'd drafted fraudulent power of attorney paperwork, that was a criminal offense under the Ontario Criminal Code. Third, and this was the one that made me smile, for the first time in 3 weeks, she had a forensic accountant on retainer who specialized in exactly this kind of family fraud. 2 weeks later, she called me into her office and slid a manila envelope across her desk. Marcus was drowning. 3 lines of credit maxed out, 2 of them in Claire's name without her knowledge. $97,000 lost in a cryptocurrency scheme the previous fall. 9 months behind on the second mortgage on their Oakville house, a mortgage he'd taken out by forging Claire's signature on the documents. And he was currently under active investigation by the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of Ontario for misappropriating client funds at his firm. He had, at my conservative estimate, about 6 weeks before it all collapsed. I could have just let it happen. Sat back, sipped my Tim Hortons, and watched. But that would have destroyed Claire too. She was legally tied to the forged loans. The credit damage alone would follow her for a decade, and the boys would lose everything. I couldn't do that. She was still my little girl, the kid who used to sit on my lap in the truck cab and count the red cars on the 401. So I called Marcus. Invited him to lunch at a diner in Whitby. Told him I wanted to talk about selling the bungalow. He practically leapt through the phone. He showed up wearing an Omega watch. Stainless steel. $8,000, easy. A man 9 months behind on his mortgage wearing an $8,000 watch to have lunch with his broke father-in-law. It took everything in me. Marcus, I said, I've been thinking about what you said. The nursing home, Maple Ridge. I think you're right. I'm ready to sign whatever you need, power of attorney, house sale, all of it. He tried not to smile. He really did. But I saw the corner of his mouth twitch, and I watched a little vein pulse in his temple with pure, undiluted greed. Dan, that takes real courage. Admitting when you need help. I appreciate that, son. I'd never called him son before. He didn't even notice. One condition, I said. I want to sign everything in front of my lawyer, her office, with witnesses. All above board. That way, nobody can ever say I was confused or pressured. A half-second hesitation. Then he nodded. Of course. That's smart. Friday at 2. I'll send you the address. I picked up the bill. He'd ordered a 12-year scotch at $18 a glass and didn't offer a cent. I tipped the waitress 30% and walked out into the parking lot feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like a father again. Friday came. Marcus showed up 15 minutes early, freshly shaved, a suit that probably cost more than my truck. Claire came too, because I'd asked her to. She'd lost weight. When she hugged me in the lobby, she held on a second longer than usual. "Dad, are you sure about this?" "I'm sure, sweetheart." Miss Patel's office had a long oval table, and 3 people already seated. My lawyer, and 2 others Marcus didn't recognize. He looked at me. "Marcus, this is Detective Sergeant Rowan from the Halton Regional Police Financial Crimes Unit. And this is Mr. Chen, a forensic accountant I retained 2 months ago." The color drained out of his face in 3 distinct stages. White, gray, something close to green. I opened the cream-colored folder on the table between us. On August 29th, my brother Raymond passed away. He left me an estate valued at $7.9 million, a cottage on Lake Muskoka, 2 rental properties, a stock portfolio. I was coming to your house that afternoon to tell you both. I was going to pay off your mortgage, set up education trusts for Ethan and Cole, give Claire enough to walk away from a job she hates, and finally do something that made her happy. Claire made a sound I can't describe, like someone had reached into her chest and squeezed, but then I stood on your back step, and I listened to your husband call me a walking liability. I listened to him plan to forge my signature onto a power of attorney. I listened to him plan to sell my home out from under me and put me in a shared room in Peterborough. I slid the manila envelope across the table. Inside that folder, Marcus, is a summary of the $340,000 of debt accumulated in my daughter's name without her knowledge, the forged signature on your second mortgage, the cryptocurrency losses you've been hiding, and a preliminary report from the FSRA showing you're under active investigation for misappropriating approximately $210,000 of client funds. Detective Rowan opened a small notebook. Marcus started to stand. Miss Patel's voice stopped him cold. "Sit down." I looked at my daughter. "Claire, look at me, not at him. At me." She did. "I love you. I have loved you since the day your mother put you in my arms at Lakeridge Hospital at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday in 1961. I will always love you. And I am so sorry you have been living with this man for 11 years. I should have seen it sooner, but I'm saying something now. You deserve better than this. Your boys deserve better than this. And I am going to make sure you get it." She started crying. Not the soft, muffled kind from September, the kind that shakes your whole body. Detective Rowan asked Marcus to come with him. Marcus looked at Claire, reached for her hand. She pulled it back like his fingers were made of fire. "Don't," she said. "Don't ever touch me again." They took him out through the side door. The whole thing took maybe 4 minutes. Marcus was charged with forgery, uttering forged documents, and fraud over $5,000. The FSRA investigation concluded separately. He pleaded out rather than face trial. 4 years federal, out in 2 with good behavior. Miss Patel handled Claire's divorce. The forged loans were unwound through the courts. A forged signature isn't a valid contract. The Oakville house was sold. Neither of us could stand the thought of her raising the boys in those rooms where he'd made his calls and drafted his plans. I bought Claire a house in Burlington. Quiet street, maple tree in the front yard, finished basement for the boys. Cash. Her name on the deed. I set up the education trusts for Ethan and Cole, and I put enough aside for Claire that she could walk away from the marketing job and try writing that book she'd dreamed about since she was 17. She's 40,000 words in now. It's about a single mother raising 2 sons in Ontario. It's going to be good, I can tell. We keep the Muskoka cottage through the summers. Claire drives the boys up, and we spend long weekends on the dock watching the loons come in off the water. Last August, Cole, who's 12, asked me why I'd never told anyone I was rich. I thought about it for a minute. I wasn't rich then, buddy. I didn't become rich until about 2 months after I found out about the money. He looked confused. I became rich the day your mom chose her family back. The money was just paperwork. He didn't quite get it. He's 12. He will someday. People ask if I forgave Claire. The honest answer is I never really needed to. She was drowning in deeper water than I could see from shore. All she needed was a hand. Marcus, though, I'll be straight with you. I hope those 2 years inside feel like 20. I hope every single day of it he thinks about that cream-colored folder on Miss Patel's table, and what his life could have been if he'd just been a decent man to the people who loved him. My father used to say this when I was a kid growing up in Hamilton and he was still working the steel mill. Danny, family isn't about what you get from them. It's about what you're willing to give. Marcus never understood that. He thought family was something you harvest, something you mine until the seam runs dry. He thought I was the seam. He was wrong. I was the dynamite.